Hey there, thank you so much for stopping by. I know it's been quite a while since I've done a video. That's partly due to the holidays and to COVID, but I wanted to go ahead and let's get started for 2021 because there is hope finally on the horizon about being able to travel again. I hesitate to give a lot of travel advice only because I don't want to advise somebody to do something that is against their better judgment or to endanger anybody with COVID. But if you are choosing to travel and that is your own personal prerogative, I want to give you as much information as I can to make that travel experience a much better experience. So today I want to talk about Hawaii. Now, this is, of course, one of the most popular places to go in America. And there's been some confusion about what you have to do to get into Hawaii nowadays. And so if you're thinking about traveling there this year, I wanted to give you the most updated information on their COVID protocol and how and what it's like to travel in Hawaii. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, before I get started, I wanted to ask my community some questions. Now, I seem to have two kind of videos. I teach how to plan travel, how to find the best pricing, how to do your research, how to get all of the details and information, because I'm an ex-travel agent. And so I know all of the details about how to get the best packages, the best rates, all of that stuff. So I teach that. And then I also talk about specific destinations, and I like to cover destination ideas and information like today's video about Hawaii. But I wanted to ask you, which one do you prefer? Do you like having both? Would you rather have more about how to plan your travels so you're saving money and time and everything else? Or do you want more destination information and ideas and things of that nature? If you could please comment below and just let me know which one you like more, I would be very grateful. And then that way I know what to focus on this year for future videos. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into Hawaii. Okay, so I have copious notes about Hawaii. So if I'm looking down, that is what I'm doing there. Now, this is information as of today, February 1st, 2021. So as you know, literally this can change daily. So I will put these links below as well so you can check for yourself to verify anything that I've said, because it changes almost hourly, it feels like. But this is what the information is as of today, February 1st, 2021. Anybody going to Hawaii usually would have a 10-day quarantine. However, they do have an alternative for anybody traveling domestically within the United States, anybody from Canada, Japan, and starting February 5th, Korea. Everybody else, all other countries still need to do the 10-day quarantine. But if you are American, Canadian, Japanese, or Korean, you can actually choose to test in order to avoid the 10-day quarantine. These are the rules that I found. So in order to test to avoid the 10 days, you have to take a COVID test 72 hours prior to departure. And then you have to upload that negative test result to the Safe Travel program that Hawaii requires for anybody coming to Hawaii. Has to complete the Safe Travel. It's an online questionnaire, but you upload your negative results to that Safe Travel program. Or they say you can, instead of uploading it, you can bring a hard copy. I personally recommend both. Upload your negative result, but also bring a hard copy, because depending on where you go, you might need to show that hard copy to certain resorts, or for instance, Kauai, they still want a hard copy. So it depends on where you're gonna go. So always print out your results and bring those with you everywhere you go. So as long as you provide that 72-hour negative test, you don't have to quarantine, except for on Kauai. There's some different rules, which I'll talk about in just a moment. The testing is for anybody ages 5 and over. Getting your test from your home country, they do request that you use one of their trusted testing partners, because they want to verify that it is the quality of tests that they're looking for. So on their website, you will see a list of all of the trusted testing partners, so that you get your test from that specific one of those people. That way you don't mess around with them not accepting your test. And so I wouldn't risk it. I would always go to one of those trusted testing partners. And again, I will link that information below. The other caveat to some of these information is Maui. When you go to Maui, you don't have a second quarantine period as long as you bring your negative test, but they do have a mandatory contact tracing app that you have to download while you're on Hawaii. So they want to be able to trace and know if any COVID spikes happen where all of the visitors are. All right, so that's if you're going directly into Hawaii from your home country or from the state, from within America. If you're going inter-island, so you go to, say, Oahu first, and then you want to go spend some time in Maui and then go around, there's also some little bit different requirements. If you are traveling to Oahu from one of the other islands, there's no further requirements needed, no further quarantine, no further testing, just that initial negative test that you got when you first got into the state of Hawaii, regardless of what island you're on. If you're going to the Big Island, you still need to have a test 72 hours prior to arriving on the Big Island. Even if, say, you're in Oahu, you want to take a test before you arrive, or you might have a post-arrival quarantine until you receive a negative test result. So you could also test once you get to the Big Island, but you would still have to quarantine until you get that negative result back. The other thing the Big Island does, and I believe this is whether you're traveling inter-island or coming directly to the Big Island from your country or from your state, is they also will give you random COVID tests. About 25% of passengers are subjected to a random COVID test. It's free, they pay for it, but they do want to test people on a random basis and make sure that they're catching, hopefully, as many people that there might be problems with. That's the Big Island. Maui also wants you to test 72 hours prior. So again, if you are in Oahu and you want to go to Maui, and I don't mean just your flight stops in Oahu on its way to Maui. I mean, if you're going to stay overnight in Oahu or any other island and then travel to Maui, they want you to test 72 hours prior to your arrival in Maui. And then Kauai is the same as original entry. Okay, a few other tips that the state of Hawaii gives to all of their visitors. They want to say, give extra airport time or extra time in the airport for security, because you will be, your temperature will be taken. Sometimes if they're like on the Big Island where they test 25% of people that come across randomly, if you have over 100.4 temperature, then you have to go to a secondary checkpoint where a health professional will do another screening just to see if you're in danger of being put in quarantine or if you're okay. The other thing you need to do is 24 hours prior to departure from your home country or state, you need to answer the health questionnaire on the Safe Travels program. You do need to complete the Safe Travels questionnaire before you depart wherever you're coming from. That's always a given, but you also 24 hours prior have to answer the health questionnaire. Okay, those are standard general tips for Hawaii. I want to talk a little bit about more if you're going to Kauai, because it is a lot more tricky because of that second test that they require. You have to stay at an enhanced movement quarantine resort bubble for 72 hours once you arrive. It is a mandatory quarantine at specific resorts. And then after that 72-hour quarantine time period, you take another test at the resort. And then if you're negative at that point, then you're released and you're allowed to travel about the island. So this is kind of the process if you're going to be going to Kauai. Now, the resort bubbles, there's only a set number of hotels that are considered the resort bubble, the enhanced quarantine. That list can be found in the links below. You do need to make a reservation at that resort. That does not mean you have to stay at that resort your entire stay. You could decide to stay there for those 3 days. And then if you wanted to move to a different location, you could do that. So what you do is you have to make a reservation online for one of those resort bubbles, at least for those 72 hours. You complete your test, your negative test, before you leave home. 72 hours before you get to Kauai, you need to have a negative test. Then what you do is you also complete the Safe Travel on the website, that questionnaire. But Kauai also has an additional Kauai travel form that you need to fill out as well. And those links can be found below. You will not be allowed to rent a car on Kauai until after your 72-hour quarantine is up and you have that negative test. And so you need to check with your resort to find out what your travel options are, to get transportation options are to get from the airport to the resort. I'm not, each of them probably have different things that they do, perhaps a shuttle service or perhaps some other form that they recommend for their guests. So make sure you check with your resort. You also need to have that hard copy of your negative test to show to your resort. They require it to be a hard copy. Then what you do is, after you've been at the resort for 72 hours, you take another test. And as long as that test is negative, the resort staff will update your status on the system, the Kauai's travel system. And then they take there's going to be a wristband that you have to have on. They take that, and then you're free to roam about Kauai. The same thing holds true if you're coming inter-islands. If, again, as I said before, say you're staying on Oahu for 3 days and then you're coming to Kauai, you need to make sure that you have a test 72 hours before arriving in Kauai. You need to upload those results to that Safe Travels program. You need to bring the hard copy, same thing. And then what the difference is here is you likely do not have to have that second that quarantine, that's 3-day quarantine, because the Safe Travels record will verify that you've been in Hawaii the entire time, you haven't been anywhere else, and you should, with your negative test result, you should be free to go ahead and roam about Kauai. All right, so what is this resort bubble? What the heck does that mean? There are specific resorts that will do this resort bubble thing for you, and I wanted to give you some examples. So I have the Kauai Marriott is one of them. And what they do is, everybody checking into the Kauai Marriott, when you check in, you have to have that negative test result in your hand. They will give you a wristband. They call it their Aqua wristband. The first one is free. Everybody after that who's over 15 pays $100 per wristband. The wristband, then also you download an app. The app is tracking you in your bubble. They're making sure you're not leaving the bubble. Very, very important. You have to stay in your bubble. When you pay for that band, you also get a dining credit. So it's a $25 dining credit, but everybody has to buy the band. You get limited access around the property. So you get access to a lawn area, a pool, a separate gym for quarantine people, and then specific restaurants. There's a couple restaurants you have specific access to. However, you do not get beach access during your quarantine period. So you have access to those things for your 3 days. At that point, then you take the test again, and they charge you for it. It is $200 plus tax per person for that second test. Once you get the second test, the negative results, they remove your wristband, and then you're free to roam about Kauai. So that was the Marriott. In comparison, I also did the Hilton Garden Inn, which is usually a less expensive resort to stay at. In their case, they charge $80 for the wristbands, but I didn't see any indication that there was a dining credit attached to that. And everybody has to pay for that wristband. You also get select access to a pool and certain areas of the resort, probably certain dining areas as well. And then again, at the end, you do have to pay for testing, and that is also $200 plus tax per test that you have to take on Kauai. Whew. Okay, so that's a lot of information. As I said, I'm going to link everything below so that you can refer to that. Also, again, to update the situation and make sure you have the most updated information before you leave for your Hawaii trip. Now, let's go to, you've jumped all through all of the hoops and you've cleared all the hurdles, and now you're free to roam about all of the islands of Hawaii. So is it worth going? Can you do anything? Well, it is similar to perhaps what the rules are in your home country or state. I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the things that I found as of today that are open and how it works. But I'm going to also link that below so you can check before you go as well. So, as with just about everywhere in the world now, if you are in public, you do have to have your mask when you are traveling about Hawaii. There are some limited tours and excursions that you can take. Each vendor, each excursion company is totally different. So you would need to check with each person, each company, to know what they have available. For instance, I looked at one that has a lot of standard tours and snorkeling and biking and things like that. They had only bike and snorkeling tours available. They didn't have any of the other tours, whereas others might be fully open. So you would need to check with each excursion company and to know what they have available and what the parameters are, what the safety protocols are, and so forth. Restaurants at the moment are open for takeout and delivery, like they are just about everywhere. They do have some limited indoor, about 50% occupancy. Tables are spaced out about 5 to 6 feet apart. Reservations are required, and no more than 5 people in your party. Now, this is the standard thing that I've seen for just about everything on Hawaii. If you have more than 5 people in your party, chances are you're going to have to split up to a certain degree at restaurants and at some of the other public places. Parks, beaches, trails, they are open, but they ask no more than 5 people in a party. Also, you have to wear your mask everywhere. And then shopping, movies, indoor attractions, museums, things of that nature are open at 50% occupancy, and they request it be no more than 5 people in a party. All right, so that is the quick overview of how to get to Hawaii and then what you might be able to do once you are there. Stay tuned for future episodes where I'll actually go into more destination-based what to do and where to stay and more of that information. Right now, if you are planning to travel to Hawaii this year, there are some crazy good airline rates available, air tickets. Why am I not talking right today? Flights are pretty cheap right now. I was looking at spring break for our family, and even during spring break, which is usually an exorbitant amount because it's spring break, I was finding flights from California to Maui, for instance, for $182 per person. Crazy, crazy good rates. So if you are going to travel to Hawaii this year, it's a great time to go. If you feel comfortable doing so, I am not saying people it's okay to travel. That is your personal decision. But if you do choose to go, now's a great time to go because rates are good and you can do a lot of you can't do everything Hawaii has to offer, but you can do a lot. So if it's worth it to you, I'd say go for it. All right, so I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to learn more about how to find those cheap flights, go ahead and take a look at this video here. And other than that, I hope you have a fantastic and safe day. See you soon. Bye-bye.